Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into the life and teachings of Gautama Buddha.
Great.
And, he's someone whose impact is just massive. Like, you can't even measure it, really.
It's kind of amazing how far and wide
Yeah.
his influence has reached.
Yeah. And, we're going to be looking at the complete story of Gautama Buddha.
Okay.
And we really want to dig into the really interesting parts of his story, not just the facts and figures.
The nuances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whether you're here because you're interested in the origins of mindfulness, or maybe you're just drawn to amazing stories from history.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot to learn here.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so to start, Siddhartha Gautama, that was his given name. He was born in Lumbini, which is in modern-day Nepal.
Right.
And this was around 563 BCE.
Okay.
And, he was born into a royal family, the Shaki clan.
So really starting off with a lot of privilege.
Oh, yeah, kind of it.
Yeah.
His father was King Suddhodana, and he ruled over an area called Kapilavastu.
Okay.
But sadly, his mother, Queen Mahamaya, she died pretty soon after he was born.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, it is.
Especially for a young child like that.
Yeah, so he was raised by his aunt, Mahaprajapati Gautami.
Right.
But, even from the very beginning, there was this prophecy about Siddhartha.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they said that he would either become like a super powerful king,
Okay.
or a great spiritual leader.
Oh, wow. So it was kind of left open.
Yeah, exactly.
For him to start.
And his father, I mean, he was all about power, right?
Of course.
Dynasties and all that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so he tried to make absolutely sure that Siddhartha would follow that path of becoming a king.
So I'm guessing no exposure to, the spiritual life or?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It was like a life completely sheltered inside the palace walls, no exposure to, hardship or suffering.
Like a bubble.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Luxury training in warfare.
Yeah. The whole 9 yards?
Yeah, everything you'd expect from a prince.
Yeah.
And eventually he got married to Princess Yashodhara.
Okay.
And they even had a son together, Rahul.
So everything's going according to plan at this point, right?
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But something tells me that this prophecy might have some pull on the story.
Well, even the most carefully built plans,
Yeah.
sometimes they fall apart.
That's true.
And Siddhartha, he eventually ventured outside of those palace walls.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
And what he saw, it's known as the foresights.
The foresights.
Yeah, and they totally changed him.
So what were these foresights then?
Well, you have to imagine, right?
Yeah.
He's lived his whole life in luxury, sheltered from the real world.
Yeah.
And suddenly he's confronted with these stark realities.
Okay.
So first he sees an old man,
All right.
like really old, frail.
So the reality of aging.
Yeah, like he'd never really seen that before. And then he encounters a sick person,
Oh, wow.
clearly suffering, in pain.
Right.
And, this was a reminder of how fragile health really is.
That's a tough one to confront.
Yeah, it is.
Especially when you've been protected from it.
And then the third sight was even more jarring.
Oh, no.
He saw a dead body.
Oh,
Yeah, like death up close and personal.
right.
That this is something he'd never even considered before.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense though, right?
Yeah.
You shield someone from everything bad and then they experience it all at once.
Yeah, and it must have been incredibly overwhelming for him.
For sure.
But then the fourth sight, it was different.
Okay.
It wasn't, suffering or death.
Right.
It was a wandering ascetic, a monk.
Oh, interesting.
And this monk, he had renounced all the worldly pleasures,
Wow.
and he was searching for peace and truth.
Okay, so a stark contrast to the opulence and luxury that Siddhartha was used to.
Exactly, yeah. And these foresights, they just completely rocked his world.
Right.
They forced him to face these big questions about life.
Like the meaning of suffering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And whether there's a way out of it.
So this is where he makes a huge shift, right?
Yeah, it's called the Great Renunciation.
The Great Renunciation.
Yeah, so he was 29 years old.
Okay.
And he made this radical decision to leave it all behind.
To leave behind the palace, the luxury,
His family, his wife, his son,
his whole life.
everything.
Wow.
He just walked away.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is.
So what did he do then?
He became a wandering ascetic himself.
Okay.
Just like that monk he'd seen.
Right.
He was driven by this burning desire
Yeah.
to find an end to suffering.
Oh, okay.
And he spent 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah, 6 years searching,
Wow.
learning from different spiritual teachers,
Okay.
trying all sorts of practices.
Like what kind of practices?
Well, a lot of it was about extreme self-discipline.
Okay.
Like denying himself basic comforts, fasting,
Yeah.
intense meditation.
So he was really pushing herself.
Oh yeah, to the limit.
Wow.
But eventually, after all that, he realized that this path of extreme self-denial,
Yeah.
it wasn't leading him to enlightenment.
So it was another form of suffering.
Yeah, exactly. Just a different kind.
Yeah.
So this is where he comes to this really important realization,
Okay.
which is known as the middle way.
The middle way.
Yeah. So he's like, okay, neither extreme indulgence
Right.
nor extreme self-denial. These are not the answer.
Okay.
There's got to be a path somewhere in the middle.
All right. Makes sense.
Yeah. And this brings us to Bodh Gaya.
Bodh Gaya.
Yeah. And the famous Bodhi tree.
Okay.
So Siddhartha, he sits down under this tree
Mm-hmm.
and he makes a vow to himself.
What kind of vow?
He says, I'm not going to move from this spot
Wow.
until I achieve enlightenment.
That's pretty powerful.
It is, right?
Yeah.
So he sits there and he goes into deep meditation.
For how long?
49 days.
49 days.
Yeah, straight.
Wow. That's a long time.
It is. And you can imagine
Yeah.
the mental and physical challenges he must have faced.
Right. And wasn't there something about Mara?
Oh, yeah, right. So Mara,
Mm-hmm.
this figure who represents all the negative forces,
Okay.
like temptation, doubt,
Yeah.
fear.
Right.
He's trying to distract Siddhartha.
To get him to break his vow.
Yeah, to get him to give up.
Wow. So what happens?
Well, Siddhartha, he stays strong.
Incredible.
He perseveres.
Yeah.
And finally, at the end of those 49 days,
Mm-hmm.
he achieves enlightenment.
At last.
Yeah.
So how old was he at this point?
He was 35.
35.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's at this moment that he becomes the Buddha.
The Buddha.
Yeah. Which means the awakened one.
Okay.
It's not just about understanding something intellectually.
Yeah.
It's about this deep, transformative realization
Okay.
of the true nature of reality.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty profound stuff.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So after this, he starts teaching, right?
Yeah, and his first sermon is really important.
Okay.
It's known as turning the wheel of Dharma.
Turning the wheel of Dharma.
Yeah, and it's basically the starting point of Buddhism as we know it today.
Wow. And where did this sermon take place?
It was in Sarnath,
Karna.
which is near Varanasi in India.
Okay.
And in this sermon, he lays out these core principles
Right.
that are like the foundation of his teachings.
So what are they?
Well, they're known as the Four Noble Truths.
The Four Noble Truths.
Yeah, and they're all about understanding and overcoming suffering.
Okay, I'm really interested to hear what those are.
All right, so the first one is dukkha.
Dukkha.
Yeah, which basically means suffering.
Okay.
But it's not just, physical pain.
Yeah.
It's more like this general dissatisfaction.
Oh.
This unease.
Right.
The fact that everything is constantly changing.
So like impermanent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this impermanence, it means that even pleasurable experiences,
Yeah.
they don't last.
Right.
And that can lead to suffering.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's dukkha, the first noble truth.
Okay.
The second one is samudaya.
This Buddha.
Yeah, and this one is about the cause of suffering.
Okay. So what is it?
Craving. Craving.
Yeah.
Desire, attachment.
Like clinging to things.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Clinging to things that are impermanent
Right.
and always wanting more.
Right.
Always wanting things to be different.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
So that's samudaya, the root cause of suffering.
Okay. So what about the third noble truth?
Right. The third one is nirodha.
Nirodha.
Yeah, and this one is kind of hopeful
Okay.
because it says that suffering can end.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, if we can overcome these cravings and attachments, it's possible to achieve liberation.
Liberation from suffering.
Exactly. And then the fourth noble truth, this is where it gets practical.
Okay.
It's called magga.
MAGA.
Yeah, and this one is all about the path to liberation.
Okay. I'm all ears.
All right, so this path is known as the Eightfold Path.
The Eightfold Path.
Yeah, and it's often described as the middle way.
Right, because it avoids those extremes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the Eightfold Path, it has these 8 interconnected aspects.
Okay. I'm assuming it's not like a step-by-step thing.
No, not really.
I'm more like interwoven.
Yeah, more like different facets of a holistic approach.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the first 2, they're about wisdom, about understanding.
Right, so what are those two?
So you have right view.
Right.
And this is basically about having a correct understanding of the Four Noble Truths.
Okay.
And the nature of reality, like impermanence and interconnectedness.
Yeah.
And then you have right intention.
Right. And
Yeah. And this is about cultivating good thoughts, wholesome thoughts.
Right.
Thoughts based on kindness and compassion.
instead of like selfish desires or.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So those are the two wisdom aspects.
Okay.
Then you have three aspects that are about ethical conduct.
Okay.
So right speech is the first one.
Right speech.
Yeah. And this is about communicating truthfully,
Okay.
kindly, constructively,
All right.
avoiding harmful speech like lying or gossiping.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Then you have right action.
Right action.
And this is about, acting ethically in the world,
Okay.
refraining from things that cause harm.
Like stealing or.
Yeah, stealing, killing, harmful sexual conduct, all that.
Okay.
And then the third one in this category is right livelihood.
Right livelihood.
Yeah, and this is about choosing a job,
Okay.
a way of making a living that doesn't exploit or harm others.
Right. So like ethical work.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And then the last three aspects of the Eightfold Path, they're all about mental discipline.
Okay. So we're getting into the mind now.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
the first one is right effort.
Right effort.
Yeah, and this is about, consciously cultivating positive qualities
Okay.
and letting go of negative ones.
So like a constant process of.
Yeah, it's like a continuous effort
Yeah.
to improve yourself.
Makes sense.
Then you have right mindfulness.
Right. Mindfulness.
And this one is all about being present,
Okay.
paying attention to the current moment without judgment,
Right.
just observing your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations.
Yeah.
And then the last one is right concentration.
Right. Concentration.
And this one is about developing deep focus
Okay.
through meditation.
So kind of like training your mind to be calm and clear.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And this can lead to, inner peace and insight.
So it's a really comprehensive path.
Oh, yeah. It touches on all aspects of life,
Yeah.
from how you think to how you act in the world.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, it is.
So after he lays out all of this, what happens next?
Well, the Buddha, he spent the next 45 years traveling around and teaching.
45 years.
Yeah, it's a really long time.
That's a serious commitment to spreading his message.
Yeah, it is. And he went all over ancient India,
Wow.
sharing his dharma, his teachings,
Yeah.
and he taught everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah, from kings and queens to farmers and laborers, even people who were considered outcasts.
So he didn't discriminate at all.
No, not at all.
Wow.
His message was about universal compassion
Yeah.
and the potential for inner transformation.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So during this time, what about the Sangha?
Oh, yeah. So the Sangha,
Yeah.
this is the community of monks and nuns. They were really important
Okay.
because they helped to preserve and spread his teachings.
Right. So they were kind of like the keepers of the flame.
Yeah, exactly. And they lived by his principles. They embodied his teachings.
So they were walking the walk.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And even at the age of 80, the Buddha was still teaching.
Wow.
He delivered his final sermon in Kushinagar.
Kushinagar.
Yeah, and his last words were,
Yeah.
all things are impermanent.
Okay.
Work diligently for your own salvation.
Wow. That's really powerful.
Yeah, it is.
And it really gets to the heart of his teachings, right?
Exactly, like impermanence.
Yeah.
This idea that everything is constantly changing
Right.
and personal responsibility.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying that someone else was going to save you.
Right.
He was saying that you have to put in the effort.
Yeah. To achieve your own liberation.
Exactly.
Okay.
And after this final sermon,
Yeah.
the Buddha, he passed away.
Right.
And this is called the Mahaparinirvana.
Mahaparinirvana.
Yeah, which is like final liberation
Okay.
from the cycle of rebirth and suffering.
So from a prince living in a bubble to a spiritual teacher who shared his wisdom with the world.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible journey.
It really is.
And his legacy is just massive.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Buddhism spread from India to Sri Lanka to China to Japan, Tibet, all over Southeast Asia.
And all over the world now.
Yeah, and it's adapted to different cultures.
Right.
But it's always kept those core principles.
Of compassion and the search for inner peace.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even today, his teachings on peace, on mindfulness,
Yeah.
they're still relevant.
You really are.
They can still help us to navigate the challenges of modern life.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
So we've really covered a lot here, haven't we?
Yeah, we've gone from his early life those foresights that really changed everything.
Right.
To the great renunciation, his enlightenment, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path.
In his final days.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It is.
But I think it's worth reflecting on.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, which of those Four Noble Truths really resonates with you?
Yeah.
And how does this idea of impermanence,
Yeah.
the fact that everything is always changing,
Right.
how does that affect how you see the world?
It's a big question.
It is, and maybe even more importantly,
Yeah.
how can these ancient teachings
Yeah.
help us to find more peace and understanding?
In the midst of all the chaos.
Yeah, in our own lives.
Yeah, that's something worth thinking about.
I think so.
For sure.